Who is your daddy? I am your father.
You fathers will understand.
My father taught me many things.
I got an idea. How about you all sit there quietly while I make dad noises?
All right. Well, here we are. Episode 46 of Fathers of the Grind. Thank you for joining us. Derek, thanks for being here. I know it's just week after week of talking to me. I know it's tough. Like, I text you during the week, and I'm there like, oh, my gosh, I'll talk to you on Saturday. Leave me alone.
No.
So,
I think it's pretty 50-50 with us. Like, we'll randomly text each other, and our conversations are real cool. They'll be like, hey, Tim, I beat Mass Effect, and they'll be like, cool. And it just ends. And then Tim will write and be like, hey, I think I'm going to play this game instead of playing this game.
and then you won't respond. That's how they go. Just kidding. Oh, man. All right, well, speaking of this game or this game, let's go ahead and talk about what we are playing right now, and then I'm going to ask you a little bit about family stuff, Thanksgiving stuff. And our main topic, of course, you and I talked about this a few weeks ago. We want to pick our 30 games that will be part of the future, hopefully it'll exist, SNES Classic system, but we'll get there when we get there. Let's talk first of all, what are you currently playing? Speaking of our text back and forth about what we're playing. Give me the rundown.
Well, I just finished Mass Effect today. It didn't take that long. I think it's because, I think its main reason is because I know what I'm doing. Even though it's actually been a while since I played the game, but it only took me like 14 hours to complete it. Yes, I did some side quests, but I did not do them all. Typical Derek style. You know, I did enough to get me where I felt like I was leveled up enough and I could take on any enemies and not really struggle. And that's pretty much what happened. I mean, I remember, the thing is, and I shared this on our page, like, you know, not in detail like I am now, but when I first played Mass Effect, I bought it day one on my Xbox 360. I was so excited. I was a big BioWare fan. I still am, obviously. I love Coder and Coder 2, and I was like, man, I cannot wait to play this. This is basically BioWare's own Star Wars saga. So I was so excited, and I sucked at the game. Like, I got stuck on several battles and then finally got to the point where I believe it was against a certain boss. I'm not going to say her name, but a certain boss. And I died so many times I quit. You know, and I hated quitting that game because I love Knights of the Old Republic so much. And then I eventually came back to it and finally beat it, and then I played through it a couple times since then. So I go back to it probably every 2 or 3 years. And so I decided, I don't know why I decided, mainly I guess because Mass Effect 2 and 3 got added to backwards compatibility with Xbox One.
You already owned all three, right? Like, I know you've played them, but did you still own all three, or had you gotten rid of them?
I still did, but I have Mass Effect 2 and 3. This is what's kind of a little disappointing about the backwards compatibility. I own Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, all physical and digital. So I had to go buy Mass Effect 2 and 3 again physical because I have my physical copies in storage, which I'm not touching. And my digital copies are blocked by EA Access, which, no lie, I had just canceled like a week before they made this announcement.
Wait a minute. So maybe everyone else knows this, but I don't. What do you mean it's blocked by EA Access? What does that mean?
Meaning they will not let you play Mass Effect 2 or 3 digital unless you have EA Access, even if you own the games. So you have to have their monthly service.
Okay.
If you have a physical copy, they're not blocking you.
Now, you also, this is like, I don't know if this is me, like a squirrel moment where I'm distracted, but you said you have games in storage. Just, as our quick summary, do you have a lot of games in storage? Do you have other consoles in storage? What does that mean? What do you have going on in storage? That sounds mysterious and kind of awesome.
I also have Tom Brady's rookie card autographed in storage.
Wow.
I have...
You've got Mass Effect 1 through 3 and Tom Brady's card just sitting in a box in a storage room. Nice.
Yeah, and a lot of Chris Webber rookies. I was obsessed with Chris Webber.
Time out.
Huh? You
time
blocked
out.
out. I didn't hear what you
Time
said.
out. Time out.
Oh, screw you. That's what all my friends do. I hate all my friends. And Derek Jeter. I have a lot of Derek Jeter stuff. But I put all my 360, PS3, and my Wii U games. Like, all my Wii U games are in there, which I'm kind of regretting, because I've lately been like, I want to play Mario Kart 8, or I want to play Mario 3D World. I think it's with everything with Switch and everything. I kind of want to go back and play some Wii U games, but I don't have them.
Now, why'd you put those away? I mean, Wii U's not that old of a system, and you still have, kids maybe who want to play. Is it just interest in your family has just gone away, or what is it?
Most people know, and I think you figured out, I'm not really a hater. Like, I love all the systems. I love all games, pretty much. I have my few games where I've, Skyrim, where I'll crap on them and stuff like that. But overall, I like everything. But I have to be honest. Like, I have to just be honest and say I am disappointed with the Wii U. There has only been one game that I've actually played from beginning to the end on that Wii U. I did technically beat 3D World, but it was really more my daughter and me kind of playing. I beat Wind Waker, and that's it. I have not beat
That's
any
funny. That's not
games
even
on
a
that.
Wii U original. That's an
No.
HD remaster, which I've heard is great. I really want to revisit that old GameCube game. But so you technically, other than 3D
I don't
World, which
use
you said,
my Wii U. Like, I was so
yeah.
excited about Xenoblades.
but technically you
Chronicles
haven't
X.
totally completed a Wii U only game, other
Oh,
than playing the one through with your daughter.
I did beat Mass Effect 3 on the Wii U.
Oh,
So I have finished 2 games, one of which I had already beat on 2 other systems before that, the 360 and the PS3.
Yeah.
And then one I beat that was originally released on the GameCube. Hey,
when you said you
lighting's
finished,
going away.
when you said you finished Mass Effect 3 on the Wii U, I just immediately had sad thoughts as I remembered that the Wii U, one of their first wave of games included games that had already been out on other systems for a long time, and it just made me sad again to remember. Wow, that's a failing strategy right out of the gate. But whatever. Okay.
It was a good game, but anyways, getting cut the story a little shorter. They blocked me, so I decided to go out and buy Mass Effect 2 and 3 again. I got them for $9. It wasn't a big deal, both of them together. And so I finished Mass Effect, and then I immediately jumped into Mass Effect 2. And I gotta say, as somebody who puts Mass Effect 1 and 3 at a higher rating than 2, I'm probably going to end up switching it, because even though I think 1 has great characters, great story, and it's kind of it is the opening to Mass Effect, so there's a lot of nostalgia there for me, just the appreciation of that game. 2 just plays so much better. It looks so much better. Just all the changes so far. I've only played like an hour and a half. I'm like, this is way better. And it's easier now to compare because I'm literally playing them back to back. Whereas when I originally played Mass Effect 2 at launch, I think it took them a few years to release that after the first one. So it wasn't like I played Mass Effect 1, then jumped into 2, or did what a lot of people did, and that's play Mass Effect 2 first and then go back to 1. I had that big spacing where I had already played 1 before. But anyways, so 2 is a huge improvement, and I look forward to playing through that, taking my time on that one, because out of all the Mass Effect games, I put the least amount of time in that one. Even though I beat it twice, I have not put as much time as I did in 1 and 3. And then that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm kind of dabbing in... did I say dabbing? Is that a word?
You said dabbing. Are you dabbing? Isn't that like the dance move those kiddos do these days?
Yeah. After every goal somebody scores in soccer, they keep dabbing. I'm like, oh, come on. What are you, 5? And they're like, yeah, I am 5. But so I'm playing a little bit of Rise of the Tomb Raider in 4K. Just call me 4K Teague. This stuff's amazing, man.
4K
it really
Teague.
is. It's amazing.
Oh, gosh.
I
it sounds like it was
Watch
totally
Dogs.
worth all the work that you had to put in to get things to work.
It
That's
is.
awesome.
I mean, especially when you look at a game like Rise of the Tomb Raider, it's absolutely gorgeous.
Speaking
I
of
played
4K,
it-
I have to interrupt here. My wife has given me the go-ahead to go ahead and start shopping for a TV, and she trusts my judgment on getting a good value for one. So it's time to upgrade the old television.
Well, I will
So-
say this. There's a lot of good deals. This is the good time to start looking. But I say before you buy anything, come to the group because, like I said a few weeks back, there's a lot of scary stuff if you are looking to go 4K, which I think if you're going to buy one, do it. Spend
I'm planning on it.
Couple $100 and get a 4K TV.
But you brought up some good points the last time we talked about this, and that is there are details, whether it has to do with the HDR component or there's other little details more than just, hey, this is 4K, fill in the blank. There's details I need to be paying attention to. So I'll be looking to not only you but also our other group members for some guidance there for sure. But I'm excited about that. I'm looking forward to it. Don't know that I'm going to commit to any kind of console upgrade with the S or the Pro. I'm really not leaning that way right now. But I am looking forward to having a nice new screen for right now. So, anyway, continue. Are there anything else you're playing? I know you've said you dabbed a little bit into Watch Dogs 2 and Dishonored 2, right?
That's pretty much it. Like,
shot?
I played like 3 hours of Dishonored 2, and I haven't gone back to it because my full focus has been on Mass Effect. I've played Borderlands 2 with Jesse and Rob, so that's kind of like my co-op game. And actually, it's kind of funny. This is what we were texting about the other day. I texted you, and I was like, yeah, Jesse's going to get The Division. Rob's got it. I've got it. So I'm going to start playing some Division again, co-op. And you're like, I just deleted that game off today. So
I did.
Tim will be a part of that co-op.
I did, and I'm sure your brother Jamie appreciates that. Like, when he's finally like, you know what, I'm done with The Division. You're like, I might go back to The Division. That's great.
Well, you know what? I
What a
blame
brother.
my brother. Don't let him play victim here. First of all, he only plays on weekends, and he rarely communicates like, hey, I'm jumping on. So, screw my brother. Keep playing The Witcher, you little wuss, and I'll keep playing the good games.
Oh, yeah, because The Witcher 3 is lacking in so many areas.
It is. It's trash. And I'm going to keep bashing The Witcher just to piss you off until you play Dragon Age.
Yeah, no, The Witcher 3's... I haven't even played Dragon
Trash.
Age Inquisition, and The Witcher 3 is already better than it. All right, so I've been playing a few games. I finished up Deus Ex Mankind Divided. I loved that game. I talked about it a little bit last week already, but I finished it. I liked it. I feel horrible about the decision that I made at the end. I've made the
I wish you
decision
could
that...
spoil it.
I know,
wish
I
you
don't
could
want...
spoil it.
I don't want to spoil it, but I'll talk to you about it later, the decision I made. I feel bad about it, but I was talking to someone at work about this, how you have to make a call at the end of the game. It's a decision you have to make, and it's not really clear-cut what the right call is or what the wrong call is. It's like, hey, you have to make a choice, this path
It's
or this
like
path.
real life.
Yeah, it's almost like a 24 situation. Like, do you go do
Yes.
this or do you go do that? And one could potentially put lives at risk, but one could potentially save the future and whatever. So it's really intriguing, and so I made the decision, and I felt bad about it instantly, and at the end, the news reel is running as the credits are getting ready to roll, and they're kind of summing up my gameplay, like all the missions that I ran. They're kind of touching on each piece of the game that I decided to do. It's a very great way. It was a very effective way to wrap up that story, because I felt like, wow, I really had an impact. Like, I chose to do all these side missions that then turned into major stories in the game, and I liked that a lot, and I don't have any immediate plans to go back and play it again. Part of me immediately wanted to go back and say, all right, let me pick the other option. I've got to save shortly before that. I could load that up and then finish the game to see the other option. But there's another part of me, and maybe I'm the only person who thinks this way, but I feel like that was my experience with that game. It's kind of like Telltale games. I don't want to replay those. Because once I have my experience with that game, I made my decisions. Certain characters lived, certain characters died. I either failed at some things or I succeeded at some things, and that was my story with Deus Ex Mankind Divided. So I have no plans to go back and replay it. I might just watch a YouTube video to see the alternate ending, to see what the difference is. But I was really happy with that game. I thought the story was actually better than people gave it credit for. It wasn't amazing, but I also didn't think the Human Revolution story was absolutely stunning. I thought they were both very good.
I think the stories are okay. I think it's the setting, characters, and what you touched on at the beginning of you talking about the game, and that's some of the choices they make you make, and that reminds me of The Witcher. They give you very minimal details. They just are like, you've got to make this decision now. And they're very gray decisions. They're not like Infamous or even Mass Effects. You know, sometimes they were like, this is the Paragon choice.
Yep.
This is the Renegade choice. They don't do that. And that's one of the things I appreciate about The Witcher, and I appreciate obviously about Deus Ex, is they're like, no, here's your choices, man.
Here's an example of one. I don't think this is a spoilerish one. It might be a tad spoilerish for a side mission, but it doesn't give away anything. So in Mankind
forward 30 seconds.
Skip ahead a minute or two if you. But it really isn't a spoiler. It really isn't. So there's a point in the game where you need to get something from a. I forget what country he's from. He's like a Russian gangster. I think he's from Ukraine. Anyway, and you're trying to get an item from him, and you negotiate with him, and there's a bunch of different ways that negotiation could go. And if you go the way that I went, I ended up owing him a favor. So I didn't have to fight or battle or do anything crazy or pay money, but he ended up saying, hey, I'm going to call you for a favor later. You owe me. And he did call me later in a totally different area, and he said, I heard you're in this area. I need you to take out this particular person. And when I talked to that person, they were actually tied in to another series of missions I was doing, and I didn't want to kill them. So it was it was awesome the way they balanced those things together. I owed this mobster this favor because of my negotiation with him earlier, and now I had to choose, do I let this guy off the hook, or do I go ahead and follow through because I'm afraid the mobster might come after me? It was very interesting the way they did that, and that's not the only place in that game that they kind of tie some things together.
Here's what's cool about, and this is why I played the game twice, without like spoiling it, and I'm not talking about for our listeners, but like for me, I obviously went into the game fresh, so I ran into the character you were just talking about, the mobster, and I needed to get something from him early on in the game. And playing Deus Ex games before, I didn't realize he was gonna be kind of like a mission type guy, like, hey, do this for me, and then I'll give you. I didn't realize it because I never actually talked to him. I went in guns blazing, and I killed him.
Oh, that's
and
awesome!
his whole crew.
I didn't know you could do that. That's
yes.
Awesome.
So he was never in my game after that. I killed him. I actually got his gun, which was like an upgraded frickin' revolver.
Dude, that's crazy because he's in a key scene later in the game.
Yeah. And
Whoa,
I killed him.
That's
he was
awesome.
gone completely. And then the second time I played through, I knew who he was, so I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that. So I actually
that's
kept
really
him on.
cool. I didn't know that was the case. That's really cool the way it can go two different, totally different branches. That's pretty awesome.
That's why I rated that game so highly. It's fun to play. It's got a decent story. It's definitely not bad. It definitely got crapped on in a lot of reviews more than I felt like it should have. But really what I love is the freedom of choices, and that the actual choices have an impact and the choices aren't obvious. You know, they are
right.
very, very gray. And so I loved it.
Well, and speaking of the way it compares to The Witcher 3 one more time, I do like that the hero character is pretty stoic. He's almost robotic in some ways, and yet you can tell there's a lot going on under the surface. Geralt and Adam Jensen, I think, have a lot in common. They're completely awesome fighters, obviously. They're heroic. They want to make the right decision, but they also are very serious. They don't necessarily show a lot of emotion in the moment, in each dialogue piece, but you can also sense underneath all of it there is some emotion there. There is some anger, some rage, some revenge that happens. So I like both those leads as kind of stoic and yet still somehow likable characters.
So you like your men quiet.
I do, apparently.
Got it.
Like my men quiet. All right, so which is I don't know why you and I get along.
Tim likes to do all the talking.
I don't know why you and I get along if that's the case. All right, so I jumped into Watch Dogs 2 last night for, I don't know, maybe 2 hours or so.
Wow, you've played it more than me.
Yeah, so I played it for a little while. I met the crew, and I did a couple random missions, just kind of explored the city a bit. It's really fun. They improve on a lot of things. It's really pretty. I think it's a good-looking game. It's one of the better-looking GTA clone games. I think you and I texted about that, too. It's one of the better-looking GTA clone games in recent memory. It still doesn't quite meet the expectations that the very early on original Watch Dogs trailer showed way back in the day. But it's very good, and it's very colorful. I mean, the city's very alive. When you get to your main home base and you meet your crew for DedSec, it's all a bunch of young, millennials, almost college-age type people. They've got a lot of energy. It's very colorful. They're very artistic, but they also definitely have a very serious goal in mind. So it's really good so far. The main issue I have with it right now is I really can't play it when anybody else is around, unless I've got headphones in, and that's tough to do when you got people around. It's got some swearing in it, and a lot of it. Yeah. So, but that's okay. That's part of the game. That's the way they wrote it. It's not necessarily something that I want coming through my loudspeakers in my house, though. So I have limited time to play that one, and so in light of that, this morning, I had some time with the kids. It was really cold out today, and we had spent the whole morning doing all sorts of stuff around the house, and I thought, hey, it's 11 o'clock. I'm going to sit down and play a game until lunch. And we ended up sitting there for almost 2 hours because I fired up Final Fantasy X, and the kids all sat and watched it with me, and they loved it. So I played Final Fantasy X for about 2 hours. I got right up to the point where I'm about to meet Yuna, I snuck through the place where only the summoners and guardians are supposed to go. And Final Fantasy X is a classic game. It's really fun, and the kids were enthralled by it for a while. But so anyway, that game is a lot of fun. I forgot how fun that battle system is, and the sphere grid upgrade system is really fun. So very cool game, Final Fantasy X. I don't think I'll keep playing it for very much longer. I might jump in every now and then if the kids want to watch it.
I bought it when it launched, and that's the only Final Fantasy game I beat, and I played like 10 hours and enjoyed it, and I was like, I don't want to play it anymore.
Yeah, and it's funny, everyone bashes Blitzball, and I don't remember it being good, but I remember enjoying certain aspects of it, and I don't necessarily want to play that again, because in my mind, I've got an overall positive experience with that game. I'm wondering if certain components of it would really be brought down. The voice acting is not great, but it's also not quite as bad as I remember up to this point. So, anyway.
There's some cheesy lines, though.
There are definitely some cheesy lines. But here we are. It is November... Oh, shoot, what is today's date? Is it the 19th?
Yes.
November 19th. We're coming up on Thanksgiving here, and I wanted to just find out from you, what are you guys doing for Thanksgiving?
We're just going to get the whole family together, like everybody, aunts, uncles, cousins, and brothers.
So you have
sisters.
family that's traveling to you guys?
Not much traveling. Everybody lives close by. I think we're gonna do it at my sister's house. But we'll have, probably 20 people together, including kids. So it won't be too big, but it won't be small.
Okay, nice.
Lots of good food.
Do you cook?
I say that, but I actually don't like. Oh, creeper in the background.
Hey, clothes are on.
the
That
background.
gets my approval. It's fine. Clothes are on
Hey.
for now.
Okay.
Are you gonna make anything? Do you do anything in the kitchen?
No, I don't, and I don't really like Thanksgiving food, to be honest with you.
What?
I would prefer like lasagna or something. Don't some people have lasagna on Thanksgiving?
Yeah, some people go a different route, and I'm actually usually okay with that. But since it's really the one time a year that there's that specific combination of food, I always get excited about it. So I mean, it's not like we have turkey and mashed potatoes and stuffing and cranberry sauce and sweet potatoes. We don't have that kind of stuff throughout the year usually. So I mean, mashed potatoes, I guess we do, but that combination of food on one plate is fantastic.
So what are you going to do since you're in Colorado? Are you just going to do it with just your family, or are you going to get together with friends?
Yeah, so I'm just going to go by myself, and my family can figure out what they're doing. So it's just going to be me. Just one big plate of food, just for Tim. So that's
good.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Katie's mom, my wife's mom, is coming in to visit, so she'll be getting here on Tuesday, and then she'll stay here through next weekend. So that's what we're doing. We're having her here. We're actually going to do a mini Christmas with her too. She's from the East Coast, and so she'll be flying out here, and that's going to be our Christmas time too. So
now, is she the one in Pennsylvania, or is she in Ohio?
Pennsylvania. Yep. And then my folks are coming out for actual Christmas week. So it's going to be basically 2 Christmas visits within a month. So it'll be nice. It'll be good. I only have 1 day of work this week. So I'm going to go in on Monday, and then I'm taking a couple extra days off, and then I'll have Thursday and Friday off. So it'll be a nice long break. But the kids have off school the whole time, too. So it's not going to be quite as quiet. Like, it'll be all 7 of us at home. Well, 8 of us on Tuesday when my mother-in-law arrives. So it'll be good. It'll be fun. I love Thanksgiving food, like I said. We'll probably go see Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them or something like that. We might go see something in the cheap seats with the kids, like Fantastic Life of Pets or Storks or something like that. So it'll be a fun week. Looking forward to it.
Good. I'm not taking any time off. I'm going to work every day except Thursday. So
You have to work Friday, too?
Yeah.
Bum.
Well, I usually take... Oh, gosh. Hi, Eli. I usually take some time off.
Hashtag Derek's favorite.
Eli, you're my favorite son.
I want to go to bed.
Okay, go to bed. But I normally take time off, but I actually decided I'm going to go on a cruise in December, which is normally blacked out at our work. They don't let anybody take any time off, so I had to go to my boss and say, hey, a couple won 2 tickets. Well, really, they won 2 rooms, so they booked a room per spouse, I guess you could say. And then
Sounds romantic.
yeah, it's funny
You
because
each got your own room.
it's my pastor and his wife, And so they each have their own room, and then I'm apparently bunking with his wife, and then he gets my wife.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, clergy, they can get married, but they're not allowed to sleep together, so that makes sense.
So it's great. So they keep joking about that. They're like, well, you're hanging out with my wife anyway, so. And I'm like, yeah, no. But so we're going in like mid-December for a week. It's 5 days. Like, this is crazy for me because I've gone on one cruise and it was like 3 days and I hated all 3 days. Like, it was just terrible. I hate
I've never
cruises.
been on one. It's not necessarily like a dream vacation for me, but my wife went when she was in, I want to say high school, right before graduating high school with her family, and she loved it. So she's always wanted to go back. I'm sure she and I will at some point take a cruise vacation, but it's not necessarily at the top of my list. But I mean, more power to you. Enjoy.
Could be cool because it doesn't have any kids involved. Like, they're leaving their kids behind. We're leaving ours behind. So that aspect of it could be cool, but overall, I'm just not a big fan of just laying around and drinking.
Well, it's too bad the Switch isn't out now. You could take the Switch with you and then just Nintendo your heart away the entire time.
And I would.
That's a bummer. And you sold all your handhelds, so you're going to be up a creek in terms of video games.
I can't say it because Eli's in the room, but Christmas is coming, so I might have to unwrap one of their gifts early and take it with me.
That's true.
Elijah, I thought you were going to bed.
About that.
Okay, lay down.
I love that he just sat up behind you and he's just staring at you.
I know, it's kind of creepy. About that. About what? You said you were going to bed. Okay.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to talk about the Super Nintendo. So the NES Classic is out. It's a huge hit. It apparently is hard to find. I haven't even looked for one, but I've heard stories about how difficult it is to find. And everyone's loving the NES Classic. It seems like a great gift, as we talked about a few episodes ago as well. A great gift for the nostalgic kind of old-school gamer in your family, or maybe for yourself. I wouldn't mind having one, although it's not at the top of my Christmas list. I think it's a cool little collector thing and a cool way to introduce your kids maybe to some classic games that doesn't require getting out the Wii and then buying these games for $5, $6, $7, $8 a pop. So I think it's a very cool idea, and I'm glad Nintendo's doing it. To be very clear, they're not the first ones to do it. There's an Atari Classic that's already out, and I believe there was already a Sega Classic that was out. I just don't know the quality of those. I'm not sure that they actually have the best games. I can't speak to the quality of those. I know that this is a Nintendo product, and other than the controller cord length, I've heard that it's a great system. So
yeah.
So anyway, with the NES Classic being out, one of the things that you and I talked about doing was, hey, what if they make an SNES Classic? And I don't know about you, but that would make me extremely excited. I'd buy that. I'd wait in line for something like that. I'd be so excited for an SNES Classic. And so we talked about filling in if we were in charge of Nintendo, or if they for some reason asked an outside consultant firm of Fathers of the Grind to come in and decide what games to be part of it. We decided we're going to fill that list in. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share my screen. I've got a spreadsheet open. Now, for those of you who know anything about me, you know I'm a nerd. You know I'm a big numbers guy. Actually, my job is analytics. So my job is to know numbers and to organize them and report on them. So this is right up my alley. I like doing this stuff. So I'm going to share my screen. And so, Derek, let me know if you can see the right screen here.
Okay.
And
okay, you're there.
There we go. Can you see it?
I can see, spreadsheet.
All right, so when you talk, does it go back to you?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, that's all right. All right, so here's what we're going to do. And by the way, let me know if the screen messes up or you're not seeing the screen sharing. All right, so here we go. Here's our list. So what I did was I went to Wikipedia, the all-knowing Wikipedia, and I copied and pasted a full list of SNES games. So all SNES titles you'll see right here in this column. So if you scroll down, it just goes and goes and goes. And, there's a lot of games there.
Yeah.
So what I did was this week, and I was excited to do this because I'm really excited to have this to do this part of the show. I created a secondary column where I just very quickly moved things from this column over to the suggestions column. So these are ones that I instantly thought, well, these should be in consideration for the final 30. And I ended up with something in the 70 to 80 game count range.
Wow.
So it's going to be tough to trim some of these out. So here's the thing. Here's a couple rules I want to set up. Number one, I want us to try as best we can to include at least one of each of these genres. And that's just to make it interesting. That's not because I think that's what they should do, but that's just to make our game choices, to give it a little bit of guidance. So we want at least one game that could fit into one of those categories. Some games will cross multiple categories. A great example is something like ActRaiser, which is an action platform game, but it's also a sim game as you're building a city. So some will cross both, and that's fine. But I just wanted us to make sure we had a wide variety of games in our final list. And let's also say, the way we'll do this is we'll each pick one game at a time. So we're basically each picking 15. But if we get down to needing to eliminate a game or two, maybe we'll have to eliminate each other's games or something at some point. We'll figure something out. So that's pretty much it. And you ready to do this?
All right.
I know you've got some activity going on back in there, so I thought I'd set us up while you were figuring things out. But yeah, if you're ready, I'll let you have the first pick. So whether you want to scroll through the entire SNES titles list here in that column E, or if you want to just grab one of the ones out of my suggestions column, it's up to you. So I'll let you make the first pick of which game is going to go on this SNES Classic. And tell us why.
Let's
do... By the way, this is not best SNES games. That list might look slightly different. This is games we think should be on the system to represent what the SNES is all about. Okay.
Well, then we got to do Donkey Kong Country for me first.
Okay. All right, Donkey Kong Country. It's a good pick. We'll throw a one in the platformer category. Nice. All right, well, I am going to instantly jump. Okay, here's where I come into a dilemma. Chrono Trigger is one of my favorite games of all time. I've talked about that before. And I think I'm going to end up adding it to the list, but I might wait a little bit, depending on how we are looking with RPGs. Chrono Trigger is available on multiple consoles. It's available on the DS. It's available on the PlayStation 1. It's available on the PlayStation Store as a PS Classic. It's available many places. And so I'm thinking of this as more of if it's a representative list of the Super Nintendo, I think it should be on there. And yet for the sake of those who might want to play it, or who want an idea of what the SNES was all about, they can access that many other places. So I'm kind of torn on when to include that one. But I'm going to start things off with Doom. I'm going to throw Doom on there. I think Doom was one of the best shooters of that generation, and it set the tone, and it's still fun to play now. And I think if you guys haven't played the old Super Nintendo Doom, it probably was on other consoles as well, and maybe the PC, but the original Doom on the SNES, it came on I think it was a red cartridge. It was super cool. It was really kind of scary to play with the lights off, but then once you learned the levels, it became more of a challenge. How fast can you beat this game, and then find the BFG, and it was really fun. I loved Doom. My brother and I both loved that game. So what's your second pick?
Mortal Kombat 2.
Mortal Kombat 2, nice. Now, why that one over the other two? And I know that this is widely considered to be one of the best of that time for Mortal Kombat games, but why is it better than 1 or 3?
It just was way better. It's not even like competition. It had a better cast of characters. Like, I think Mortal Kombat 2 was double what Mortal Kombat was. It doubled fatalities. So Mortal Kombat 1, I think, had 8 characters that each had 1 fatality, whereas Mortal Kombat 2 had 16 characters that had 2 fatalities per. They had friendships. It was just a really, really good fighter. It's my all-time favorite fighter. Nice.
All right, very cool. All right, well, I'm going to take us in an RPG direction, and I'm going to say Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars needs to be added. I think this game does a great job of giving you an idea of what games were like during the Super Nintendo life cycle. They had a lot of character. The graphics on Super Mario RPG, no, they're not HD, obviously. No, they don't necessarily look amazing on the giant 4K TV today, but they still have charm, and that's exactly what the SNES was all about. Lots of charm, lots of very animated characters, despite the fact that they were very small. They were very small characters, and the details maybe weren't incredible compared to today's standards, but back in the day, Mario RPG looked amazing. The combat system's fun. Mallow and Geno are two of the coolest Mario Universe characters that really never got much love again after that. So yeah, Super Mario RPG is a must on this system. All right, what's number 5? What's our 5th game on here?
F-Zero.
F-Zero. Tell me about F-Zero.
For me, this is the best F-Zero game. Not that the other ones weren't great, but F-Zero was just a crazy game. It was super fast, very difficult, but it was extremely addicting. It's actually one of the franchises I would really love to see Nintendo bring back, because I don't feel like they've really given it a fair shot. I know it's it's a difficult one to sell, but I really think if they brought it back and just gave you a bunch of cast of characters and different type of vehicles and stuff like that, it made it almost like a fighter in a racing genre. I really think that it could do pretty well. But yeah, I really like that game.
Okay, yeah, no, I agree with that. I remember when I first played F-Zero at a friend's house, it was too fast for me at first. I think I was just used to other types of racers like Mario Kart and things like that. So that was just a little too much for me at first, but then I grew to love it. And I think there was a GameCube one that came out that I also liked a lot, even though that one I remember being really, really, really tough.
I think that's the last one we've gotten.
Yeah, I remember that one being very difficult. But F-Zero is a great pick. I think it's one that we need to have on the classic SNES list. All right. Well, in that same vein, I'm going to pick Star Fox. This was the first game in this franchise, in the Star Fox franchise, I believe. It introduced the FX chip. I remember that being a big deal, and I read Nintendo Power and this new technology they were including in the cartridge for Star Fox, the FX chip, and it looked really cool, and it rendered these really cool and sharp polygons for the ships and for the enemies and for the environments, the explosions. It all had a very robotic look to it. It was very cool, and it was a lot of fun to play. It was basically an on-rails space shooter. I mean, you're just going through a pre-designated path. You didn't have a lot of ability to free roam throughout each stage. Actually, I don't think you had any in the SNES version. It wasn't until Star Fox 64 that they gave you a little more of an arena type of a setting for some of the battles. But Star Fox is a requirement for anyone who wants to know what the SNES was all about. So love that game.
Yes,
Loved
really good game.
The communication between the characters was great too. So loved it.
I was gonna say, when you were asking me why F-Zero, and I was thinking about it, I was like, man, same reason I like every Nintendo franchise. It's not that, don't get me wrong, the gameplay is always great, but it's not that they have over-interesting gameplay. Like F-Zero isn't, and Star Fox isn't that different than other games that, like for instance, Star Fox is basically a pilot game. It doesn't play much different, but the thing that to me separates it from all those other type of games is it has a lot of personality. And the same thing with F-Zero. It had a lot of different characters, a lot of personality. That being said, my next pick is going to be The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past.
Oh, best menu in that generation.
Yeah, easily. I
by the way, what genre
is
is Star Fox,
monthly.
real quick, before we talk about Zelda? What genre is
what
Star
do you
Fox?
got here?
Should we call it a shooter based on the things I've got? Either that or arcade, maybe? What kind of genre?
Yeah, I would do either arcade or shooter. I would do arcade
throw it under
because we don't
arcade.
have an arcade. Yeah.
That one's going to be tougher to find. Okay. All right, so go ahead. Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. Other than the menu screen, tell me why you think it should be included.
Besides Mortal Kombat 2, and Killer Instinct, Legend of Zelda is probably the game I played the most on the Super NES. So I have a lot of nostalgia for it. It's still one of my favorite Zelda games, even though I've kind of grown out of Zelda. But it still has a special place in my heart. And yes, it does have a great menu screen.
And it has that really cool moment where you go to the Dark World. It kind of feels like you beat that game, and it's a little bit like, seriously, that was the whole game? And of course, no, that's not even half of the game. And so it really opens up after that. So very cool use.
Which I do think, if I remember correctly, when me and my brother were playing it, I think when we got to the Dark World, we thought we had finished. And then we were like, what?
Yeah, yep, it totally opens things back up. All right, so we'll put that one under Action Adventure, of course. All right, good pick. I like that one. All right, let's see here. So many good ones to choose from. For those of you who are watching this on YouTube, I'm just going to kind of scroll through so you can see the list here under column D. There's a lot of good games that we're forced to pick from. So I'm going to go ahead and pick one that I loved, and I didn't expect to love it because I wasn't necessarily the biggest Mega Man fan during the earlier NES days. I liked the Game Boy game a lot because it was one of the few games I owned for a while. So when you only have 1 or 2 games, you play them a lot. So I remember playing a lot of Mega Man on the Game Boy. But when Mega Man X came out, the graphics were totally overhauled. It had a very unique and kind of cartoony but cool look to it. And it controlled way more smoothly than the kind of difficult for me. Maybe I'm just a bad gamer, but kind of somewhat difficult for me controls in the old school games. And Mega Man X included all sorts of new powers, and of course you had I'm blanking out on the dog's name, but it included all sorts of really cool things, and it, to me, took that franchise to a whole new level. So it's not to hate on the old school Mega Man; those still have an amazing place, and I'm glad that they're including that in the NES library. But for Super Nintendo, I think Mega Man X really well represents what a lot of the shooters. I'm going to put that under shooter. Does that seem fair to you? Shooter category? Yeah. So I think Mega Man X is very much deserving. I remember X2 being cool. Never played X3, but I think for our purposes, X is a good representative here. So,
all right.
What we got next?
I'm going to go with NBA Jam Tournament Edition.
Yes. Loved this game. Tell me about NBA Jam.
Well, it's another one. I mean, back in this day, I mean, I was a huge sports fan, so playing NBA Jam Tournament Edition for hours and hours. It was great couch co-op. I would play with my buddies, and then we moved on to NBA Hang Time on the N64, but this game is the one that kind of kicked it off for us, and I have so many great memories with that game. It's freaking awesome.
Sweet. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to... Whoops. I'm just making sure we have... I want to make sure we have the right count of games when it's all said and done here. There we go.
What's funny is I'm not even like going through and really trying to pick it based off our categories, yet we're pretty spread out, pretty even so far.
We are, yeah, and I'm actually going to
I doubt I'm going to get a sim or a strategy or even a puzzle game, so that's going to be on you.
Well, I'm about to pick a strategy game for us, and that's going to be Ogre Battle: March of the Black Queen. This is a game that I remember. This is a game that I remember being very hard to find for a while. I remember like our Blockbuster. It was either that or the Hollywood Video. I can't remember. But one of those two had one copy of it. And if we got lucky, we could get it, and then we could, keep renewing it. Because we couldn't find it to buy anywhere. It was going to be like $100 and something online, because eBay was still very, very, very early on, or any kind of online purchasing was early on. I'm talking like late 90s here, when I finally got into Ogre Battle. But it's a very cool strategy RPG. Oh, I'm going to throw strategy on here. Yes, it's an RPG, but I'm going to put it under strategy category, because what you do is you build your units using individual characters. And so, of course, it's a class-based system where you've got everything from fighters to mages and priests and monks and also, ninjas. You've got tons of classes. Like if any of you have played a tactics game, you know how the class system typically works. A job system introduced back in early Final Fantasy days. But Ogre Battle took that, and they allowed you to create units where now you've got, you want to pick some long-range characters, and you had 6 spots to fill in each unit. And so along your front line, you want a couple warriors, maybe a ninja or somebody with high dodge ability. In your back line, you've got your archers, you've got your magic casters, and you have several units. So maybe you've got 7 or 8 or 9, I forget the limit of units you can have, and you're all out on this big real-time map with little, almost like game board or board game pieces that are constantly moving around the map. And so what you do is you didn't have a mouse. If you had a mouse, this would have been way smoother, or a touch screen. But you use your cursor, and you select a unit, and then you pick the destination. And you can select a few different destinations along the way. You want them to stop at the city, to stop at the shop and buy some, and then go along this road to attack the enemy stronghold. And so they're moving in real time. And you can pause it, you can speed it up, but the enemy is also moving in real time. And as your units encounter each other, a battle is triggered. And based on the instructions you've given your troops, they carry out the battle automatically based on their skill set and the items you've given them and the instructions you've given them. So it's not a straightforward RPG. It's much more strategy, because you're putting your units together and you're strategizing ahead of time how you want them to fight, and then you watch the battles play out as you move the pieces around the board. So it's a very intriguing battle system. I got majorly hooked on that game when I finally got a copy. And I highly recommend it. I think it was on the PS1 as well. So I highly recommend it for any of you who have a chance to play it. If you love strategy games, RPG games, it's got a great story. Ogre Battle, very underrated Super Nintendo game. All right, what's next?
Killer Instinct for me.
Killer Instinct. All right. Jago. I remember this game.
Yeah,
Tell me about Killer
pretty
Instinct.
obsessed with this in the arcades. I have so many memories of, like, especially with, like, Mortal Kombat 2 and Killer Instinct. You know, this is when I was, I don't know, maybe 12, 13 years old, and so I didn't have a job, I didn't have any money, and I remember working at my grandmother's house just to save up I think it was like $70 to get Killer Instinct. And I remember buying that, and me and 4 of my buddies, we just hook up the Super NES, and all we would do was fight each other the entire time. My cousin was really good. He would go into training mode, and he would get to the point where he could do, 40, 50, even 60 hit combos, and we were all doing like 20 hit combos at best, like noobs. But yeah, a lot of great memories with Mortal Kombat 2 and Killer Instinct.
What's your favorite Killer Instinct character, off the top of your head?
It's definitely Full Gore.
Full Gore is cool, yeah. I loved the announcer, too. He sounded so cool. Full Gore. Like, he always sounded awesome. But I also liked Glacius. I think he was my favorite. The way you could sink underneath the ground and kind of slide around in the ice patch and do the uppercut and stuff. I liked Glacius the best.
I do want to give a shout-out to the new Killer Instinct on the Xbox One. I don't play it as much because I'm just not into fighters as much. But it's legit. Like, they made a great fighting game. So
yeah, and the way they released it is unique and I think really effective. Kind of like a little bit like Hitman.
Seasons.
A little bit like Hitman's doing, but different than that. So, yeah, Killer Instinct is very good. But just like you, it's not even that I'm not interested in fighting games. I'm just not good at them anymore. so they got really complicated, and I'm not that good at. I'll be honest, I'm not great at them. All right.
Nope.
My next pick was going to be Street Fighter 2, but I'm going to hold off and see if we have space for that one. We've got 2 fighting game representatives already, so I'm just going to wait on that one before we go there.
And that's fine. That was one of mine, too, so it's got to go on there eventually.
All right. Well, I just picked kind of an obscure one, an Ogre Battle, and I'm going to do one more obscure one since you're picking some of the ones that I would have picked already. So I'm going to go ActRaiser. I'm sure you guys, any of you, and I know you too, Derek, you listen to podcasts. I'm sure many of you have heard this game talked about. This is a very unique, one-of-a-kind game, and they tried a sequel, and the sequel didn't do anything. It was horrible. It was mostly the action part of it. So ActRaiser begins, and it's kind of in this heavenly temple with clouds all around you, and there's this little angel talking to you, and you answer a bunch of questions, and then all of a sudden you're thrown into this side-scrolling, and not even a very amazing side-scrolling action sequence where you kind of play this guy who looks like Thor, but he doesn't have a hammer. He has a sword. So you're kind of like a Norse god-looking guy. You're a statue that comes to life because this angel gives you power. And so you go through, you fight. You got a sword that you can swing. You, over the time, throughout the game, you develop other abilities, like you can throw fireballs and things like that. But the action part of it is just good. It's a nice arcade action game. It's not amazing. Mm-hmm. But then when you complete the level, what you realize is you just freed this particular area of land from monsters, and then you control the angel who flies around the land as it switches to an overhead view, and now you are building a city. So you map out roads, you tell them where to put certain buildings, you're setting up, you're getting offerings from the citizens, to give you more money and to give you more items. All the while you're floating around as the angel, and you have this power to shoot arrows, and kind of like Icarus or something like that. And so as you're flying around shooting these monsters that are attacking your city, your citizens are building a bigger city and a better city. And once you complete that, then you have to clear one more area of monsters, you fight a boss, and then boom, that area is clear, and then the angel basically says, hey, there's another area that needs your help, and you go to the next area, same thing. It's really intriguing. The stakes get risen each time. You get more abilities each time. The cities get more progressively strong, better each time. The buildings get better. It's a lot of fun. It's a good combo between action and sim that really hasn't been repeated. So I'm going to throw it under the sim category since we might not have any more of those. But ActRaiser is a very unique game. If you guys have a chance to play it, I do think it still holds up pretty well. The action part, like I said, plays like a very dated Super Nintendo game, but it's the unique combo of 2 different types that I think make it deserving of a spot. Okay. All right, we got 12. Let's keep going.
Wow, good lord.
Yeah.
I feel like we've picked more than that. I'm gonna go with. Damn it, I forgot it. I'm trying to find it.
It's all right. I'm gonna kind of scroll through the list for people so they can, until you pick it, they can kind of see what else we've got here.
Oh, Secret of Mana.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Now that one is one again, and I've talked about it on the show before, where I had very limited experience with JRPGs, and that was one that I could play with my cousin. So he would boot it up, and him and I would just co-op it.
Yep.
I believe that's it. And otherwise, I just picked the wrong game.
If you're talking about Secret of Mana, it's like an action RPG.
Correct.
Yeah, by Square. Yeah, so it was a multiplayer game too, so 2 people can play at the same time.
Yep, that's what we did.
Yeah, I loved that game, and I thought it had a cool story too, and it had some pretty cool characters in it. But more importantly, I thought the multiplayer battles, where you're free to roam around, kind of a scrolling screen. It was kind of an overhead view, and you hold in the button to charge your weapons to attack. You can bring up a menu system to activate magic. And you can play 2-player. You can both completely separately control 2 characters and work together to heal each other. And you can swap between the third character, who's controlled by AI. So any one of you could switch over to that person who might have an ability you need at that moment. So I totally agree with you. That would have been one I picked too. Love Secret of Mana. All right. Are you still there? I know we've been cutting out a little bit here.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. Yeah, things have been cutting out a little bit. So, okay. All right. Well, I'm going to pick a beat 'em up game, and I'm going to put this under. I guess I'll put it under action. I thought about having... Oh, you know what? This will go under arcade. Duh. This will be under arcade. I'm going to pick Final Fight. So Final Fight is basically Streets of Rage, but it was unique to the Super Nintendo, I believe. I could be wrong. Maybe it did come out for more systems. But it was the first one of those that I played, and then after playing Streets of Rage, after that, I still thought Final Fight was the superior game. I liked the characters you could choose. I liked just the way the fighting felt, but they're so similar. So for some of you, if you want to kind of pencil in Streets of Rage besides this one, you totally could. But Final Fight was a lot of fun. It's kind of a street brawler where you pick your character. You got the giant, I think it's like the mayor or somebody, and he's just like absolute beast. He looks like Tom Selleck on way too many steroids because he got a big old mustache, and he's huge. And of course, you got the girl character who does lots of kicks and jumps and stuff. And you got the guy character. I think his name was Guy, actually. The kind of the faster, skinnier version of the hulking beast. So a lot of fun. Another multiplayer game, very arcade style. Let me add it to arcade here. And I really loved that game as well. So Final Fight. Did you ever play Final Fight?
I think so. I played all those beat 'em up games, so I probably played that one as well.
Okay.
Just probably didn't realize it was Final Fight.
Okay. All right. So what do you got next? We've got the only genre we haven't touched on yet is puzzle. So I'm not necessarily worried about genre anymore. I think very expectedly we've done pretty awesome with our genre variation. So let's just go ahead and go with games that we think represent the system really well, regardless of genre.
Well, we probably should have picked this one either 1 or 2, but I'm going to go with Super Mario World.
There you go. Even though you don't think it's the best Mario, do you?
No, I don't. Of course not. Come on, you don't know what's my favorite Mario game?
I do. I know that it's Sunshine, and I know that you're wrong. So.
Oh, okay. I thought you were the nice guy.
Super Mario World. Was that the first? I mean, it was for most people because it was packed in. Was that the first SNES game you played?
I want to say yes, probably.
Because I'm pretty sure that was packed in with most systems, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. I can't even remember when we got it, how we got it. I don't know if we got it close to launch, but I know I had that game. And Zelda were probably the first 2 I owned.
I remember when you play Super Mario World and that first moment, right at the very beginning, where you can crack the egg open and get Yoshi. Like when they first introduced Yoshi, who's now just a mainstay, kind of like an assumption for most Mario games. But Yoshi was introduced, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Yoshi was introduced in Super Mario World. At least in terms of the mainline Mario platforming games. I mean, it's possible. It's possible there was some other kind of smaller puzzle game I'm forgetting that Yoshi was in, but I think this is where he was introduced. So I love that game. I think it's brilliant in the way they, in the way they have secrets you can discover, find the keys, and find the secret exits to open up a new path, especially in the ghost mansions. And once you learned that, like if you guys go on YouTube and look for Super Mario World videos, whether it's speed runs or people finding secrets, it's really amazing. All the secrets that game holds. Learning how to master the cape was really tough, but I loved that too. So, great pick. All right, I'm going to pick out another simulation game that actually isn't one of my favorites, but I do think it belongs on this list, just not only to provide variation, but also because it's a great representation of what this season of consoles was all about. So I'm going to go with Harvest Moon and put it on there as a simulation game. Again, it's a game that when it first came out and my buddy and I rented it, we tried it. It wasn't horrible, but it was just boring. It wasn't really what we wanted. Mm-hmm. But looking back, it really kind of set the tone and established what a lot of future sim games, especially farming games, would become. So it had its cute little art style, almost looked like a little JRPG, very much like Earthbound. But it was very much just a farming sim. But it added some cute elements to it in terms of the village you were in and getting married and all that kind of stuff. So I think Harvest Moon deserves a spot on here as a great representation of what the system had to offer. Even if it's not it wouldn't be on my personal top 30 list, but I think it belongs on this classic.
All right.
So what do you got? What's next?
I'm going to go with X-Men Mutant Apocalypse.
Nice. Now, remind me, was that the arcade port that came to the Super Nintendo? Do you remember?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Which this is another one that I played in the arcades a lot. So, naturally, when it was released, I was all over it.
Yeah. I remember, did the arcade have like multiple screens beside each other to make it really widescreen version? I feel like I have a memory of there being like a widescreen X-Men arcade game. It had like multiple screens beside each other.
I think when I played that, it was a widescreen with four players. Like,
yes.
You had 4 players gathered around playing it.
Yes, that's the arcade version I remember too. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't remember it really well for the Super Nintendo, but I do remember like at the bowling alley or at Chuck E. Cheese. Mm-hmm. Actually, there was what's the name? There was a Chuck E. Cheese competitor way back in the day. It wasn't Shoney's. It was something else. It was some kind of bear, and it was very similar, like a kid's pizza and arcade place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm blanking out what it's called. But anyway, when we go to those types of arcade places, this was one that got a lot of my time and attention. I almost picked NBA Hang Time, but because you picked NBA Jam, they are very similar. But NBA Hang Time probably got more of my quarters than most arcade games because I thought I thought it was a better version of NBA Jam, to be honest. But I'm just going to stick with one arcade NBA game for now. All right.
So what you got?
Speaking of sports, I'm going to pick Tecmo Super Bowl 3 Final Edition. As somebody who played all the Tecmo Bowl games on the NES and the Super Nintendo, they had a couple different versions. Tecmo Super Bowl 3 was basically the zenith, the peak, the absolute best version of all of those. It had the same fun Tecmo Bowl style gameplay. It was refined a little bit. It looked a little sharper as you're running kind of that zigzag up and down the screen. The play selection was much more varied. You could actually create your own plays. You could create your own characters. You can, as they perform throughout each season, they actually gain more skill points, so you can build up and then save that character. So if you create a character, they assign you a random number of points to use to give them skill sets. And then as you progress throughout the game, you earn additional skill points to upgrade that character even further. So, of course, Tim Nestor was always a star quarterback every season that I played. He was fantastic, one of the best the NFL had ever seen. So Tecmo Super Bowl 3 is the best version of all Tecmo Bowl games, in my opinion, and would be a good representation of a sports game on here. So, all right, what's next?
Let's go Super Punch-Out.
Nice. Did you like the original Punch-Out?
I did. I probably played it more than Super Punch-Out.
What did you think about Super Punch-Out, what they did with it compared to the original?
I don't honestly remember much. I just remember playing all the Punch-Out games. The only Punch-Out game I didn't play a lot is the Wii version. I played like a little bit of it, but not as much as I played on the NES and Super NES.
Okay.
I know Mike Tyson was taken out, but I don't remember like any significant changes or anything like that.
I'm throwing that under sports, even though it's kind of almost like a rhythm game, but I'm going to throw under sports because it's boxing. I hope that's fine. Okay. Super Punch-Out is not one that I actually spent a lot of time with. I did like it, but I never owned it. I played a ton of Punch-Out, the original Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and then I played a lot of the Wii version when that came out. So I do actually still own a hard copy of the Wii version of Punch-Out. And so I feel like I've experienced the best of both, but people love Super Punch-Out, and I think it's a good one to include. From what I do remember of it, it was very cartoony and very well designed. Kind of a similar way that Mega Man X kind of added a new 90s layer of visuals. I feel like Super Punch-Out did the same thing. All right, here, let's see. I'm just going to scroll through. There's a few I have on my mind, but I just wanted to make sure that there's none that I'm skipping before I add these. There's so many. I love that they had Super in front of a lot of these games, too. All right, I'm going to go ahead and throw in Super Metroid. We can't exclude that one. I knew that was going to be added at some point, if for no other reason that we both would feel an obligation to include it. Super Metroid is probably, even today, one of the best games from the Metroid franchise. It probably is the best in most people's opinion. I know there's others who would argue for the Prime series being better. That's just more of a personal preference between a side-scrolling kind of platforming adventure game versus a first-person shooter adventure game. So Super Metroid, there's not much more to say about that. It's absolutely amazing. If you haven't played it, there's many places you can go find it right now, and still holds up. Really fun adventure, exploration, platforming game. All right, what's next?
Super Mario Kart.
Super Mario Kart. Good one. Anything to add about that one, or is it pretty self-explanatory?
It's Mario Kart. I think it was...
It's the first Mario Kart.
Yeah, it was the first one I played. It's a little slow. Like, if I was to go back and play it now, I would hate it because it's too slow. But at the time, again, it was another co-op game that I got to play with my buddies that we just really enjoyed.
Yep, totally agree. All right, let's see here. I'm considering two different games. Right now I'm looking at SimCity because I put a lot of time into the SNES version of SimCity. I actually think it has a level of charm and fun that the PC didn't have because it's a much more simplified version of the PC game. It had to be simplified for the console. But I think I'm going to hold off on that one. Let's add Final Fantasy III. Got to do it. Can't leave it out. And I'm going to go another RPG after this one too, I think. Final Fantasy III, I've talked about it a lot. I think it's my personal favorite Final Fantasy game. Each Final Fantasy entry does something special and unique and cool, and I like all of them in different ways, in different levels, but I think Final Fantasy III is the best. Best story, best characters, best fighting system with the Espers. By the way, on the Super Nintendo, in the USA, it was released as Final Fantasy VI, but in the official canon of all the Final Fantasy games, it's 3. That only confused people when they did it that way. So I won't say much more about that. I think I've talked about it before. Might talk about it again in the future. Final Fantasy 3. All right, what's next? What do you got?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in Time.
Is this another one you played in arcade, or was this just a Super Nintendo one for you?
This was another one I played co-op with my buddies on Super NES.
Nice. Any additional things you want to add about that one?
No, it's kind of like the X-Men game. It was just fun, 4-player. What is it called? Not fighting, but arcade fighting type game.
Yeah, it's a beat 'em up game, kind of like a Final Fight or Streets of Rage, but it was Ninja Turtles, and it was definitely very arcadey. Super fun. That's a good pick. All right. I was gonna pick Mario Paint just to add some variety, but I can't because I don't think if they made an SNES Classic they'd include a mouse. So I think that's one that's just going to be lost to anyone who doesn't want to buy an actual SNES and an actual mouse that would go with Mario Paint. So we're gonna skip that one for now. Let's go ahead and add Tetris Attack. I remember playing Tetris Attack. It was a really fun multiplayer version of Tetris, kind of a spin on what worked. So Tetris Attack and it would actually be a great way to add a puzzle genre to this list as well. But it was really fun. I remember playing that game just for a little bit, not for a ton of time, but it had some fun multiplayer versus modes on it too. So what's next?
Man, it's getting tough now.
We're getting tough. We're down to 6 games left, so we each have 3 picks left. It's time to get serious here.
I feel like I've left off one.
Here, you look through, and I'm going to read off the list to everybody what we've got so far. If you're just listening, maybe you've lost track. So here we go. So far, we've got Donkey Kong Country, Doom, Mortal Kombat 2, Super Mario RPG, F-Zero, Star Fox, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, Mega Man X, NBA Jam Tournament Edition, Ogre Battle March: The Black Queen, Killer Instinct, ActRaiser, Secret of Mana, Final Fight, Super Mario World, Harvest Moon, X-Men Mutant Apocalypse, Tecmo Super Bowl 3 Final Edition, Super Punch-Out, Super Metroid, Super Mario Kart, Final Fantasy 3, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, Turtles in Time, and Tetris Attack. So that covers all of the main genres I wanted us to include. 3 sports games, 3 RPGs, 1 action-adventure, 2 racing, 2 sim, 1 strategy, 3 platformers, 2 shooters, 2 fighting, 1 puzzle, and 4 arcade. So far, I'm pretty thrilled with our list. So how do we want to finish it?
I'm going to go ahead and throw on Donkey Kong Country 2.
I totally agree with that pick. Even though it's kind of redundant from having the first Donkey Kong Country, why would you include that one, though?
Because I'm going to include all three. Spoiler.
So what I did earlier today, and I'm going to ask you why you want to include those in just a second, but what I did earlier today was I kind of went through and just said, okay, of these suggestions, what would I put in my 30? And just kind of, as I'm watching football, I was just kind of building my own personal 30 list. I did that exact same thing. I included all three, but why would you include 2 and 3?
Well, I felt like they built off one. Now, I will say this. I like the first one the best, but that's probably, again, nostalgia. But I do remember... You know what's great about this system is I legit have so many great memories of spending a night at people's houses or them spending a night at my house and just playing these games. And one of them was, well, 3 of them were the Donkey Kong Country games. So for my next 2, you can just put 2 and 3.
Yeah, I went ahead and did that. So we've got Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kong Quest, and Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. So in Diddy Kong's Quest, they introduced Dixie with her helicopter hair. And I don't know about you, but I thought that was an awesome ability, that she could kind of float, basically, kind of like Princess Peach style from Super Mario Brothers 2 back in the day. Yeah. So I thought that was great. And then in 3, they introduced the baby, who had some really funny abilities that kind of added a very funny cartoony level of personality to those games too. But pretty brilliant platforming in those games, I thought. So great picks. Can't disagree with any of those. All right, are there any genres that we're kind of short on? We've got a few sports games, RPGs. I feel like we
have one action adventure.
Yeah, one action adventure doesn't seem right. I'm going to kind of go out on a limb. Oh, you know what? Since I got 2 in a row, I'm going to throw Chrono Trigger on there. I just have to. It's my favorite game of all time, or at least one in my top 2. Can't exclude that one. One of the best RPGs ever. I won't say much else about it. If you haven't played it, then you need to. It is not some kind of like small fringe Japanese role-playing game that only a few people could love. It is seriously a game that even if you are a RPG light style gamer, you could play this. It's not overly complicated. It's got a great story and amazing characters. So go play Chrono Trigger if you haven't. All right, so let me add that to RPGs. All right, I'm going to throw in one more that I think straddles the line between RPG and action adventure, but I'm going to pick Demon's Crest. So this was a game that I actually first played on the Game Boy, and it was called Gargoyle's Quest. And you play as a gargoyle come to life, and you're basically kind of in a hell or Hades type of a realm. And it's very RPG-like. You can walk around, talk to characters. You have to get items like potions. You have to level up. You increase your health. You can increase your ability to cling onto walls, which is very important as you're navigating through the platforming areas of that game. But it's very much action-adventure because you're fighting enemies in real time as you jump your way and fly your way and glide your way through stages. Of course, you have an initial very short burst of fire out of your mouth, but of course, as you upgrade that, it can get bigger, it can do a spread shot, it can be more effective, it can actually cover up spikes that might hurt you. They introduced some really cool abilities in that game, and I remember playing Demon's Crest on the Super Nintendo, and it was basically a bigger and better and now fully colored version of what was a very cool original Game Boy game in Gargoyle's Quest. So I'm going to go ahead and throw in Demon's Crest. I know it's not necessarily a super popular game that everyone's heard of, but I think it'd be a cool sample of maybe games that the mainstream hasn't heard of before. So I'll include that under action adventure, even though it does, like I said, straddle the line with RPG and platforming a little bit. All right, so we each have one pick left. So take a moment, take a breath. What are we missing from this list that needs to be on there?
I'm going to go NHL 94. Since this is a personal list,
yep,
that's another one I played a ton of.
Now, are you an NHL fan already? Are you already someone who watches hockey on a regular basis?
Yeah. I'm a big Pittsburgh Penguin fan, so.
Well, that makes sense, living in Florida. I mean, I can see how that connects. So
there's the douchebag we all love and know.
There he is. See, I didn't go anywhere. I put NHL 94 on my suggestions list because that was the one hockey game outside of arcade ones like Wayne Gretzky's hockey on N64 and things like that, or Brett Hull's hockey or whatever. This was the first one that was actual, real teams, real players, had a simulation and season mode and a lot of cool stuff you could do, with players, and the gameplay was a lot of fun. I thought I might get into hockey because of this game. This is about as close as I ever got into becoming a hockey fan was this game. So I know there are many versions of EA's NHL games on the Super Nintendo, but I picked 94 because for me personally, that's the only one that I owned, and I played a ton of NHL 94. So I think it's a good example of a Super Nintendo hockey game. All right, so for my last game, this is going to be kind of tough. I thought about throwing in a Romance of the Three Kingdoms game, but again, available on many, many systems, and they didn't really change a whole lot, and they were kind of boring if you weren't into like politics and that kind of simulation of a game. So I'm going to go with Street Fighter II Turbo Hyper Fighting. Street Fighter II Turbo was literally the only fighting game that I've ever been really good at. I played Killer Instinct, played a little bit of Mortal Kombat, played some Marvel vs. Capcom later on, played a few others. Even some really crappy ones like Pit Fighter or Clay Fighter. Those games were horrible. But Street Fighter II Turbo was so fun. I put more time into that than I did into some RPGs and games like Zelda. Like that was my Rocket League back in the day. It was my comfort food game. And I would go back to Street Fighter II Turbo all the time. I'd even crank up the speed, and I got really good at, pulling off these moves at super speed. I would turn up the difficulty sometimes just to see how I could do. I like to learn all the different characters' moves. The only move, there's actually two characters that have a move that I still to this day couldn't quite figure out. It was Dalsim and his teleportation move. You had to do a full rotation on the directional pad and then hit like 3 buttons at once, and I could never figure out the timing. I could never quite do that right. And then there was Zangief and his, I think it was his pile driver move, that the AI, for some reason, always did to me. He would always grab me and then jump in the air and spin around, and there goes half my health as he pile drives me. I could never pull it off myself, though. So even though I like to think I was great at that game, I did not have it totally mastered.
My brother used Zangief a lot, and that was one of the moves he actually got good at.
Ugh.
I was a Ken and Ryu fighter.
Yeah, I liked them too. And then I eventually really started to enjoy the characters that had like a rapid press move. So Chun-Li with her kicks, or more so Blanca. I really liked his electricity. That was a pain in the butt for people when you're trying to fight against him, and he keeps setting you. Even the weakest level electricity would just throw people off. So love that game. Even to this day, I've gone back and played it with the classic controller on the Wii because I bought it on Virtual Console, and it's still fun to play. I could still pull off a lot of those moves. Ken was usually my go-to, but there were several others that I enjoyed there as well. What was the last one I'm missing? Oh, yeah, sports. All right, so there it is. There's our 30 games. There they are. Donkey Kong Country, Doom, Mortal Kombat 2, Super Mario RPG, F-Zero, Star Fox, Zelda, Mega Man X, NBA Jam, Ogre Battle, Killer Instinct, ActRaiser, Secret of Mana, Final Fight, Super Mario World, Harvest Moon, X-Men, Tecmo Super Bowl 3, Super Punch-Out, Super Metroid, Super Mario Kart, Final Fantasy 3, Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, Tetris Attack, Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3, Chrono Trigger, Demon's Crest, NHL 94, and Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
See, I would pay money for this.
Holy cow. Like, listing off that game, that list of games just gets me so pumped for a system like this. And even if you swapped out some of them, like if you were to tell me, hey, we're actually going to take out one of these and throw in something like Blackthorn, or if we're actually going to take out one of these RPGs and throw in Breath of Fire, or even Aladdin, as a fun platforming game, that's fine. Like, take out one or two of them if you need to. But man, there are so many good games for the system. This is how I grew up right here. This system is where I went from being a boy and became a man. I'm just kidding.
I would go with you were still a boy.
No, that's not very nice. All right, well, that ought to do it. Thank you guys for indulging us as we reminisced, and I don't know. It's fun to be nerdy.
I think we created a good fantasy. Now, I do think with the success of the NES that Nintendo will do the Super NES, but the thing is it's like a funny thing, but it's also a frustrating thing with Nintendo, is they've had plenty of stuff be successful, and you're like, naturally they're just going to do it again, and they don't. It's like they're one and done. So, we'll see.
Tell you what, if it turns out that they do an SNES Classic, not only will we see how our list shapes up compared to what the final list is, I got a little visitor here, but we'll also, maybe we'll do a list for things like PS1 and N64 as well. So, all right, well, we're going to sign off. My daughter wants to say something. She's got, what do you got there? Oh, okay. Do you want to say anything to everybody as we leave?
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Thanks for listening. Derek, go to bed. I saw you yawning. I
Yeah,
know
I'm
boring,
tired.
but I also know you're tired.
Well, you
so-
talk too much about Super NES games. You killed me.
I know. I'm really sorry. All right. Talk to you guys later.
All right.
Who is your daddy? I am the father.
You fathers will understand.
My father taught me many things.
I got an idea. How about you all sit there quietly while I make dad noises?